Welcome to the appendix, where we read the primary sources of the past so that the present can be better understood. Today's primary source, State Replies to the Virginia and Kentucky Resolutions, 1799. Every state from Maryland north replied to the Virginia and Kentucky Resolutions, disavowing with varying degrees of indignation the constitutional principles set forth in these resolutions. The replies of the states are particularly interesting because of the general assertion that the judiciary, rather than the legislative, is the proper body to pass on the constitutionality of congressional acts. Many of these replies are given in Eliot's Debates, Volume 4, pages 532 to 539. The State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations to Virginia, February 1799. Certain resolutions of the legislature of Virginia passed on the 21st of December last, being communicated to the Assembly. 1. Resolved, that in the opinion of this legislature, the second section of the third article of the Constitution of the United States, in these words, to wit, quote, the judicial power shall extend to all cases arising under the laws of the United States, unquote, vests in the federal courts exclusively and in the Supreme Court of the United States ultimately the authority of deciding on the constitutionality of any act or law of the Congress of the United States. 2. Resolved, that for any state legislature to assume that authority would be, first, blending together legislative and judicial powers. Second, hazarding an interruption of the peace of the states by civil discord in case of a diversity of opinions among the state legislatures, each state having, in that case, no resort for vindicating its own opinions, but the strength of its own arm. Third, submitting more important questions of law to less competent tribunals, and fourth, an infraction of the Constitution of the United States expressed in plain terms. Third, resolved, that, although for the above reasons this legislature, in their public capacity, do not feel themselves authorized to consider and decide on the constitutionality of the sedition and alien laws, so called, yet they are called upon by the exigency of this occasion to declare that, in their private opinions, these laws are within the powers delegated to Congress and promotive of the welfare of the United States. 4. Resolved, that the governor communicate these resolutions to the Supreme Executive of the State of Virginia, and at the same time express to him that this legislature cannot contemplate without extreme concern and regret the many evil and fatal consequences which may flow from the very unwarrantable resolutions aforesaid of the legislature of Virginia, passed on the 21st day of December last. New Hampshire Resolution on the Virginia and Kentucky Resolutions, June 15, 1799. The legislature of New Hampshire, having taken into consideration certain resolutions of the General Assembly of Virginia, dated December 21, 1798, also certain resolutions of the legislature of Kentucky on the 10th of November, 1798, resolved that the legislature of New Hampshire unequivocally express a firm resolution to maintain and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of this state against every aggression, either foreign or domestic, and that they will support the government of the United States in all measures warranted by the former. That the state legislatures are not the proper tribunals to determine the constitutionality of the laws of the general government, that the duty of such decision is properly and exclusively confined to the judicial department, that if the legislature of New Hampshire, for mere speculative purposes, were to express an opinion on the acts of the general government commonly called the Alien Sedition Bills, that opinion would unreservedly be that those acts are constitutional and, in present critical situation of our country, highly expedient. That the constitutionality and expediency of the acts aforesaid have been very aptly advocated and clearly demonstrated by many citizens of the United States, more especially by the minority of the General Assembly of Virginia. The legislature of New Hampshire, therefore, deem it necessary by any train of arguments to attempt further illustration of the propositions, the truth of which it is confidently believed at this day is very generally seen and acknowledged. Which report was unanimously received and adopted, 137 members being present. Thank you for joining us for our primary source today on the appendix. We will see you in the stacks.